I'm here with Duncan Lambden, an English major here at Syracuse University, and Duncan has graciously offered some of his time to discuss with me today the benefits of the newly built promenade here at the university. Hello, Duncan. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi.
Hi. So, how did you feel when you first heard that they were going to go through with the building of the promenade?
I initially, like a lot of people, I wasn't a huge fan. I have a lot of friends in programs that could use a lot more funding. Like I said, initially I wasn't a huge fan. I just heard that it was going to be a lot of money, and I heard that all $6 million was going to go towards the just the exterior, the aesthetic of it, which I thought was an exorbitant amount of money for something that's not that important. And like I said, I thought it could have gone towards much more meaningful things.
I understand that. Yeah, I felt that same way too at the beginning. I wasn't quite sure how you felt about all the money. What would you say your favorite thing is about the promenade?
I like the reduced traffic. I've only seen one vehicle on there so far.
Wow,
it's like a
one
maintenance.
Yeah. Oh, a maintenance vehicle.
Yeah,
okay.
like a maintenance vehicle. So that's a big plus. It's a lot more like you're able to run into a lot more people. I feel like it's makes me a lot more social.
Oh, I agree with that.
Walking around campus, yeah, because like the quad's one thing, but just because everyone goes by Shine, and giving a bigger area to like walk through Shine, it makes you a lot more able to meet people or see people.
That's really great. You kind of touched on some of these, but what benefits do you believe the promenade offers to our community?
Like I said, meeting people that you already know, running into people is great. I've heard that it's going to be used. I'm not sure if it's already happened yet. Should I just? Go promenade.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just speak up.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's already happened yet, but I know that there was talk about using it for like the club fair or stuff like that,
that's
which
really
is just
interesting.
like a really
I hadn't
cool.
heard that.
Yeah, so it's like a really nice way because putting things on the quad is nice, but being able to just walk down the entire thing and be like to know that you've seen everything rather than going the crisscross on the quad and maybe missing something. It's like a way more practical thing. I feel like it could help get a lot more people involved.
That's awesome. So you kind of touched on this a little bit about the money. So generally, how do you feel about the money spent? As you probably heard, so the promenade had an upfront cost of $6 million, but about $2 million went towards a very necessary utility project involving water and sewer mains, and then another $2 million was through alumni donors. So, do you believe it was a wise investment?
After hearing that, it's definitely a better investment. Knowing that $2 million had to be spent regardless brings it down to $4 million, and then the other $2, which was just people wanting that project to be done, is fair enough. So there's definitely. It's definitely made me feel like it's more of a reasonable expense. Again, $2 million is still a huge amount of money, but after seeing it and seeing the way it's improved the community, that in ways that I couldn't have really predicted until it happened, I do think it was worth it.
Great. So you say you are satisfied with how it was spent?
Definitely, yeah.
And there's nothing you would have rather seen the money be spent with elsewhere, or do you feel pretty like it was spent well?
I mean, obviously, if stuff had to be fixed with the $2 million, that's one thing. I know. I'm not in any programs that need like funding, but I have friends in VPA film that need like some new equipment, etc. But personally, no. I think I'm pretty happy with how it's panned out.
Do you have a lot of friends that are more for or against the promenade? Would you say?
I have a lot of friends that took my course towards the promenade. So everyone was like against it when it was coming up, and then seeing how it's like changed campus and like evolved, I think a lot of us have changed our opinion. A lot of people are very stubborn, so they're just still against it, but most of the people I've known were against it to begin with and then have changed their minds to go for it.
Interesting.
Which is good.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the university's campus framework, which is, in case you want clarification, the recently released document regarding future renovations and upgrades for the university? Do you like the plans that are being set in motion to modernize the campus? You haven't read it?
No.
That's okay. It basically covers how they're going to renovate the gym, how they're going to renovate more buildings. They want to renovate Shine.
Pete was talking about?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I haven't read it, but I was in a meeting with Pete Sala.
Interesting. Wow.
He let the people know like the different things. I think it's if it all works out, it sounds incredible. Being able to turn Archibald into, was it Archibald?
Yes.
Gym? Archibald into like the huge bigger area with like they were talking about a pool or something, right? That just sounds like.
I think that sounds really great.
If that works out, yeah, it could be a big boon for the campus. Yeah.
Do you kind of wish that maybe they did some of these projects mentioned in the campus framework prior to the promenade, or do you think the promenade was a good thing to start with initially?
I think the promenade allows for a lot of nice visual flair, which in turn could bring in more students or more money to the campus, which would help do the other projects.
Okay.
I think that functionally, I would have preferred like the gym, because obviously that's something that you can use rather than just look at.
I understand
but
that.
I understand why they would start with the exterior rather than going for the.
Okay. What would you like to say to someone who is against the promenade? In other words, like, what do you believe is the most important factor of the promenade that makes it worthwhile and worth the money?
I would say that it has brought campus together a lot. I know that I've just seen people, and I've been part of the groups myself, where just groups of people just meet up and talk, and it's such a big space that they don't get in the way. Like, it's just made it seem more of a connected campus. If someone was against the money, I would say that it's the school's money, and B, it's money that is being used to better like student lives. It's not just going to look good on like a brochure. It's going to it does help us out a lot. So I think they've just got to have an open mind about it.
Yeah. Some of the alumni donors, for example, there's 2 that donated $1 million, and it's going to be named after them. Do you like that idea, and do you think it's a good way to kind of enhance like the campus community? Like, do you like that kind of method?
Yeah, I've got nothing against it. Do you know the name?
I do not. I'll have to look it up, and I can get back to you on that.
Okay. I mean, if it's a normal name, then I can't
You like it?
I can't see what the problem would be.
Great. If you could say anything to Pete Sala, who is the Vice President and Chief Facilities Officer of this project, what would you say?
I would say keep it up. He seems very passionate about it. Like I said in that meeting beforehand, he seemed very genuinely interested in like the appearance of the campus. Like, I know that he said personally he's picked up like a few pieces of litter that he's found. So it's just like he seems like personally invested rather than just doing his job. He's like going above and beyond to make the campus what it can be, which is great.
Yeah, so you think he's doing a good job?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
He's gotten a lot of criticism. So you disagree with that criticism?
I think that's very unwarranted. I think he's doing well, yeah.
I agree as well. I think he's doing a very great job. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts and opinions with me. I really appreciate it.
Happy to help.
And I'm here with Kathleen Fye, a senior lecturer in the Department of Communication and Rhetorical Studies in the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Professor Fye has graciously offered some of her time today to discuss with me the negatives of the newly built promenade here on the university's campus. So, hello, and thank you for joining me.
Hi.
How did you feel when you first heard that they were going to be going through with the building of the promenade?
Well, at first it seemed as if it had come out of nowhere. I know that the administration says it consulted the university community prior to deciding to implement this as part of an overall framework of changes to this campus. But a number of the faculty most certainly disagree with that description, and feel as if faculty, staff, and students did not have the opportunity to influence the process or the decision in any way, much less effectively oppose it. By the time it became possible to oppose it, it had already been decided.
Too late.
Yeah.
What is your biggest concern regarding the promenade, would you say?
Well, one is related to the previous, what I just said about decision making and how the university administration makes decisions around and without the inclusion of communities who will be affected by how we spend money, what we spend money on, whom particular projects are for, and whose priorities are being reflected in these projects.
So would you say there's kind of a lack of transparency there?
Massive lack of transparency. The only thing that was particularly transparent is we decided this is happening. Choose some benches, which really kind of amounts to being told to take a seat.
That's very interesting.
In many ways, or symbolically. But that reflects a lot of people's complaints. The promenade itself may or may not be, something nice to have. But we never got a chance as a larger community of people affected to talk about that. I would argue additionally that while it may or may not be a nice thing to have, there are other things that I think, and that a number of students, faculty, and staff think would be nicer to have, like shared governance, greater access and facilities for people with disabilities, not cutting the posse program, having greater financial aid and outreach to students. To students from areas we don't usually see being able to fork over the money to be able to come here, and a shifting of priorities to students who can pay, particularly international students who are charged, who are not eligible for a lot of financial aid.
Were you one of the 108 faculty members to sign the petition asking the project to be halted? Were you? Yes. Okay. And as you probably heard, the promenade had an upfront cost of $6 million. Were you aware that $2 million went towards a very necessary utility project involving water and sewer mains running under University Place, or did you know? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's, again, fine. And if that had been also something that we talked about as being
exactly.
Yeah.
And according to the chancellor, of the remaining $4 million, $2 million is expected to come from some philanthropic donations, including a $1 million gift, naming gift from two alumni trustees, Steve Einhorn and his wife Sherry. Does this change your perspective at all? Or and if so, why or why not?
No, because I'm less concerned with where money comes from and much more concerned with where it goes and how that's decided.
Okay. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you could elaborate, so how would you have rather seen the money spent? Like, if you kind of pick one thing that you believe is most important that could have gone towards, you could have used some of this money for, obviously $6 million is a lot. Like, what projects would you have liked to have seen implemented instead?
Well, at the very least, I would like to have seen a restoration of a number of programs cut. And particularly, sexual assault support services, the posse program in particular. There were a number of cuts in 2014, and in spite of massive opposition, and really heated opposition from the university community, these policy priorities, about which we were told but not asked, went through anyway. And the promenade is very much part and parcel, or the whole process of this is part and parcel of exactly the kinds of priorities that this university has. Beautification, construction, maximizing the inflow of revenue, and minimizing real critical support services, classroom staffing. There was, let's see, not money to retain staff, cheaper to buy them out, but oddly there's now money. Sure, donors get to say something about how their donations are used. But donors do not determine the nature of our university.
Okay.
And that, I think, so that is the only concern I have about the source.
Okay.
I was like, if you give money to the university, you give, you can say all kinds of things, but we still have to decide together as a university what to do with that money.
Yeah, I agree with that. What are your thoughts on the university's campus framework, the recently released document regarding future renovations and upgrades to the university? Do you like the plans that are being set in motion to modernize the campus, or?
Well, again, I think the best way to modernize and democratize this campus would be to modernize and beautify this campus would be to democratize it. That the aesthetic improvements, unless they are matched by critical infrastructural and social improvements, and not to mention my own area of interest, which is instructional improvements. What is being improved for what? Some of these projects are great, but again, it's less about the nature of particular ideas and much more about how those ideas come to pass.
Okay. How do your colleagues feel about the promenade, either in CRS or just at the university in general? Do they share your viewpoints, or do they think it was a good project to undertake?
I can't speak for other colleagues. I know that I'm not the only one in CRS who signed the petition, nor am I the only one of us who was at a demonstration around the promenade. So I do know there are others, but their words would better reflect their state's being.
I understand. Yeah. If you could say anything to Pete Sala, the Vice President and Chief Facilities Officer of this project and other projects on the campus, what would you like to say to him?
Let's see. I would actually rather talk to the Chancellor.
Yeah?
Right. Pete Sala is doing his job. It's a job. I don't think he is... I don't think talking to him would actually address the serious concerns that I have.
Okay.
And no one likes it when you shoot the messenger, right?
Yeah. And last question. Going forward in the future, what do you think the university needs to take into consideration when looking into projects to possibly undertake that cost a lot of money?
Again, would be greater decision-making sharing.
Okay.
Shared. So what I mean by shared governance is the inclusion, and not just the formal inclusion, but the actual inclusion.
Okay.
Because we do have a university senate, but not everyone is on it. We do have a student government, but in what ways is it consulted? We have a staff council. We have in our colleges various faculty councils, but in none of these bodies did we actually have the opportunity to influence whether or how this project or any project will be implemented, or what gets cut and when and how. The decision is made without, including more than the administration and trustees, and the decisions are already made. We're mostly informed about them. We are then allowed, which I suppose the Chancellor thinks is generous, to say things or have remarks. That's what he considers consultation, but the decision was already made.
Yeah.
None of our remarks actually influences these priorities or how they're implemented. So, so what I would like to see is greater shared governance across affected university constituencies.
Okay. That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, share your thoughts. I really appreciate it.